All right, here we are, 1 week post The Ones Who Live, and kind of waiting for Daryl Dixon to come on, but it's going to be a little while, a few months, so I am just going to answer some of your questions. I've actually got quite a few of them, which is good. All right. Wow, the videos from the con in France that were sent to you are historical, because by saying her death was like necessary, and that now it would be cool if she was found to be alive, she basically confirmed that Beth's fate post-Coda was left open-ended, but we already knew that since she didn't get buried. Yeah, for sure. And that was such an odd thing to say, to be like, it was good. What do you mean it was good? There's nothing good about it. But yeah, it really felt like she was trying to say something specific or drop a hint without dropping a hint. So yeah, it was definitely historic, and I agree. That was a big deal that she said that. All right. Next one. I'm side-eyeing that pic you posted of Emily and Luna. If you noticed, they both dressed in opposites. Both are wearing dresses, but Emily's is long and Luna's is short. Emily's hair is in a lone ponytail, but Luna's hair is down. Emily is wearing blue, and Luna is wearing the opposite of that, which is pink, accented by maroon burgundy. Were their outfits planned? Would you consider this a TD thing? I mean, it could be, since there's a lot of Beth symbols and heavy hints of her coming to light. And I have a bunch. We are near the Beth is alive reveal. So here's the thing about Luna, guys. We just don't know for sure, and it's all speculation. And Galadriel Jones actually looked into her. Honestly, it's not looking to me like she is as big a deal as we were kind of hoping. A lot of people were thinking she might be Emily's stunt double or might have been working with Emily. It doesn't look like that's the case. I mean, we don't know for sure what her relationship to Emily is, but I wouldn't bank on that heavily. It seems to me like she's just a big fan and probably a TDer, but, you know, so when she posts things like that it's happening soon, I think that's, you know, just like any of us would say, you know, it's very soon, we're going to see Beth soon, her arrival is soon, but I don't know that Luna necessarily knows anything more about Emily than that. So, I wouldn't consider it a TD thing. I think that she's a big fan of Emily's, and Emily probably recognizes her because Luna goes to a lot of her concerts and things. But I think that's about it, or at least as of right now, that's all we can tell for sure. So it's definitely fun to speculate about, and they do look a lot alike, but I don't think that it's anything more than that, or at least not that we can find out right now. So that's about it. May I call you Lisa? It sounds like someone who's an overachiever and super professional who has a pretty voice like you. Thank you. That's sweet. My name is actually Liesel. It's got an L on the end, like from The Sound of Music, so it's close to Lisa. I get called Lisa a lot. When people see my name, the way it's spelled, they tend to call me Leslie, which is wrong too. And I did once get called April on the phone, and I think that's just because they heard the L at the end and not anything at the beginning. So I get called all kinds of things. I've got kind of a different name. It's a German name, so I think you hear it over in Europe more often than you do here. But you can call me Lisa if you want. It's pretty dang close to my name. But thank you. That's a sweet compliment. Next one. You know what's so weird? EK still gets invited back to Talking Dead and interacts with Chris Hardwick a lot more than Chad Coleman at this point, since both of their character death episodes aired back then. Why? Yeah, I mean, this is true of everything to do with TWD. Like, she gets invited to more events, she goes to more cons, she gets brought up more often. She does voiceovers more often. She's more involved in the gaming part of the fandom. I mean, everything she does more of than most other characters that are deceased. I mean, sure, you do see the others like Shane or like you say, like Chad Coleman or, you know, but just not nearly as much as you do with Beth. So it's definitely weird, but it's only weird if she really is dead and not coming back. And that's exactly why we think that that is not the case. I think they're keeping her around, giving her work, not only to extend her contract, but also to keep her top of mind in the fandom, to prep us for her return. So next one. Weird question, but is there a way to become an inner TD member? I'm not entirely sure what that means. I don't think there is such a thing as inner TD. If you just mean talking between me and my fellow theorists, we're not really an inner TD circle or anything. We just are good friends who found each other and like to chat about the show together. And we've kind of got our strengths and weaknesses. You know, I've talked about this before. I'm really good with reading symbolism and patterns in the templates. WD Way is just really good at colors. She's an artist, a visual artist. So she's really good at colors and shapes and forms and seeing things in the background. And Galadriel Jones is super good at maps and research and figuring things out, and looking up things for us and figuring out locations. So we just all get together and put our 2 cents together and are usually able to come up with some pretty good stuff. But there's not really such thing as an inner TD member. I mean, everybody's on the same TD team. So, but you're welcome to talk to us whenever you like. We love to have interaction and we love to hear people's theories. And I wish I could get on Tumblr more and read more people's theories. I'm just really busy in the non-TWD life right now, but hopefully it'll slow down a little bit as we get into summer. So as far as I'm concerned, you are a member of the inner TD. We all are. And everyone who feels the need to listen to my goofy little podcast, you are totally an inner TD member. All right, next one. Hi there. I was rewatching 504 and something caught my attention. When Dawn said to Beth, "Out here, you are nothing except dead or somebody's burden." I find the word burden interesting because it could hint that she would be presumably dead, but especially a burden for the group since she was unconscious and they had to leave that burden in the car in order to survive. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I'd never really thought of that before, but it could have been a foreshadow of the missing 17 days. And of course, Team Family would not have considered her a burden, but that's Dawn being super pessimistic and nasty about stuff, which she always was. But yeah, I kind of like that. That's kind of a cool way to interpret it. I think a lot of what Dawn said there was a foreshadow, not only of the missing 17 days, but of everything Beth would do after it, because she talks about how she's weak and can't survive on her own. And so obviously, we all believed that she would have the chance to survive on her own and to show that she was strong and all of that. And she never really got that chance before in the show because Coda, but we believe she will. Still, it's still coming. So yeah, thanks for sending that in. That's interesting. Sometimes I wonder if we're giving the writers too much credit. I do get this from time to time, especially from non-TDers or people who are just like new to my theories. They think, you're giving them too much credit. There's no way they would connect things back. But the thing is, they've told us before that they do. And we can see it throughout the show. I mean, yeah, it's true that Beth hasn't come back yet, so we can't really point to that. But try to think of something else. The fact that I was going to say something about Glenn, except we won't really be able to prove that until Beth comes back. In Glenn's fake out, there was a lot of Beth dialogue in it, which is why we knew Glenn was not dead, but it also goes the other way. The fact that Glenn was not dead then, because it was his fake out in 603, not when he was actually killed by Negan. That just proves that Beth's was a fake out too. There's things like that. They go out of their way to mimic the same dialogue. What's a better example, though? When Carl died. So if you watch 409, which is called After, when Rick is passed out and Carl eats the pudding and everything, there is a camera shot that is exactly like when he is bitten, and that actually leads to his death in season 8. So that was clearly planned. They were foreshadowing Carl's death in season 4, and then they mimicked the same shot when he was actually bitten. And there's just no way, there's no reason for Gimple to go back and use that exact same shot unless it was to fulfill a foreshadowing, which they put in season 4. So anyway, I could go more into that and I won't here, but they tell us to look for signs. They tell us things are connected. They tell us there's foreshadow. They tell us there's callbacks. They tell us there's symbolism. They encourage us to look for it a lot of times and try to connect things. So I don't think we're giving them too much credit. It very well could be that some of the things we come up with we're just simply wrong about or misinterpreting. But overall, they really do these things. They really do put these things in. And me and my fellow theorists have taken to saying we hope someday that Gimple writes a book about all of the symbolism and what they were thinking for every part and how they came up with it, because otherwise, I mean, they just don't tell us what was planned and how they paid it off, but we can see that they are. Another good example, I guess, recently from The Ones Who Live is 712, which was Say Yes. I mean, you guys go back and watch that episode. If you want to know how we know that the writers do this, go back and watch 712, which is Say Yes. You see Rick up on the ride, and he falls into the horde of walkers, and Michonne thinks he's dead and cries. And he comes out of the yellow ride car, and they are reunited, and she's so glad that he's alive. And that was really small. I mean, that whole sequence only took about 2 or 3 minutes. But everything we just saw in The Ones Who Live was the payoff of that foreshadow. That was a foreshadow that Rick was gonna, quote unquote die. It was gonna be a fake out, but Michonne was going to believe he had died. And then the yellow shows that he actually survived that death, and they at some point would be reunited, and she would be very happy that, he was actually alive. And that all happened in The Ones Who Lived. And then after that, they sit in the van and they talk about how if one of them loses the other one has to go on and continue leading, which is what happened. Michonne lost Rick and she continued leading Alexandria. So they do these foreshadows, and the thing is, they did that in 7, the second part of season 7. Rick did not leave until the beginning part of season 9. Then we went through season 11, and then like 2 years later, we got the spinoff. So it took a while, right? The other thing I would point out about that, which is more a symbol, less a foreshadow and a payoff, is that the deer was there. I have not talked about the deer symbolism in a long, long time, but I figured it out after watching season 4 a bunch and of course season 5. The deer is a symbol of life and death, and if the deer lives, the person dies. That the deer symbol is around, and if the deer dies, the person lives. And how you can tell that is because back in season 4, when you had the really horrible Lizzie and Mika situation, Carol kept trying to get Mika to kill the deer, and she wouldn't do it. And at the end, Lizzie and Mika were dead, and Carol sees the deer standing there. Now, that wouldn't have meant much to me, except that in 5:10, which is after Coda and right after Tyrese's death episode, Daryl keeps leaving the group and he sees a dead deer. And I kept thinking to myself, there's some reason they're showing this dead deer, like they're focusing on it. And this has nothing to do with what's going on in the episode. It's just him wandering off by himself. And other than to show that he's grieving her, which they had plenty of ways to show that in the episode. They showed him burning himself by the barn, and there was all these different ways. But why are they focusing on this deer? And it took me a while to put it all together. I had to think about other deers. Another one we saw was in season 2 when Carl got shot. I mean, we knew the deer died at the same time because it got shot, but the point is the deer died and Carl lived. So it's always an opposite with the deer. And the same thing happened in 7:12. There was a deer. Rick fell into the group of walkers, and Michonne thought he was being eaten, but really they were eating the deer, which means Rick lived because the deer died. So anyway, the point is you can see this through many, many seasons, and you can see the way that they pay off foreshadowing. So I get why you think that we sometimes give the writers too much credit. And again, I'm sure that there are some things we're going to end up being wrong about, but we're not giving the writers too much credit. They really do this. Gimple really does plan this far ahead, create this far ahead. Back in season 5, he said he had through season 15 planned. And of course, they didn't get to 15 in the flagship show, but that's just because technology changed and the formats had to change, and they went to spin-offs, and for a while they were going to do movies, and then COVID happened and that changed. So things like the technology and the way they're delivering the story changes, but he has had this whole story planned for years. And then there's the fact that he came out and said that he had to get through the comic book stuff before he could go into his own personal story stuff. And I believe the CRM and Beth and Daryl and Rick and Michonne, all of that is Gimple's personal stuff, but they had to get through the Commonwealth stuff, which is the end of the comic book material, before he could go into that, and that's why it's taken so long. But he's been planning this for a long, long time, so I do understand why you wonder that, but I promise you we're really not giving him too much credit. I promise. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll call it a day. Hey, do we know if the guy with the black t-shirt next to Emily in the Spoiling Dead picture is a member of the crew, or if he could be an actor? Could he be the man with the black t-shirt running behind Beth in the flash from the opening credits? I do not know if we know who he is. I think people, so these came from the Spoiling Dead fans, which was the big spoiler group that was on Facebook before. I think people assumed he was a member of the crew just because we didn't see him in the show as an actor. But, at the time, nobody was really thinking that there was no TD back then, and not until after Coda aired. So, I mean, he could be. I don't know. If anybody knows the answer to that, or if anyone remembers specifically what the Spoiling Dad fans said about that picture. I know that we saw, they would just say that we saw her, walking in and out of the hospital with this guy. But I think people assumed, because we didn't see him in the show, that he was probably a crew member. And he might have been. I mean, that could still be true. But they also said that Emily was seen driving police cars in and out of the Grady parking lot. That's certainly nothing that we saw in the show. And yeah, the fact that this guy has the black t-shirt. But see, the thing is, we don't know exactly. I could almost see that maybe, I mean, what you're insinuating here is that maybe he's some important character that we didn't see in the show and he's going to be part of the 17 days. And yeah, I can totally see that being the case. But it could also be that he's like kind of a non-credited actor that they just used to help film this Flash. And because it's mostly symbolic, we won't actually see him in the show. I don't know. There's lots of different possibilities. So yeah, if anyone knows any more about that, let us know. But beyond that, I'm not sure exactly if we know who he is. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone connect him in the black t-shirt to the black t-shirt in the opening credits Flash. So that's actually super interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Let's put it this way. It'll be interesting to see if we actually do see anyone like that when we get the missing 17 days footage. There'll be all kinds of stuff to talk about then, all kinds of interesting things. And I can't wait to get that, but we don't have it yet. So unfortunately, the best I can say is I'm not sure. All right, I'm going to stop there for today, but I will be back in the next couple of days to answer more. Everyone have a great day.